His wife made him promise one thing before she died. And for almost 2 years, he broke that promise every single day, without even realizing it. This is not a story about money running out. This is a story about a man who had enough money, a good job, a stable income, everything that should have made life easier, and still came within weeks of losing the only thing that mattered. Because some of the most dangerous financial crises don't start with an empty bank account. They start with an empty heart. Today, I'm going to tell you about Daniel and the 2 simple methods, one Japanese, one accidental, that didn't just save his finances. They saved his daughter's childhood. Stay with me. Daniel and his wife had been trying to have a baby for 3 years. When she finally got pregnant, it felt like the universe had finally exhaled in their favor. The pregnancy was hard, harder than anyone expected. And on the day she went into labor, something went wrong. The kind of wrong that doctors don't have good words for. There was a moment in that delivery room when a doctor had to ask Daniel's wife a question no one should ever have to answer. If it came down to it, who do we save?
She didn't hesitate. Save the baby. Promise me you'll take care of her. Promise me she comes first. Always. Daniel promised. His daughter was born healthy, beautiful, crying loud enough to fill the entire room. His wife did not survive the delivery. He became a father and a widower in the same hour.
What happened over the next 1.5 years is something Daniel doesn't talk about easily. Because the version of himself during that time is someone he barely recognizes anymore. I'll show you exactly what that looked like, right now. Daniel had a good job, a stable salary, health insurance, savings that, on paper, should have made this period of his life financially manageable. But grief doesn't care about your bank balance.
Mia was just born when her mother died.
And for the next 1.5 years, Daniel functioned. Barely. Through a fog he couldn't name. He went to work because he had to. He fed her, changed her, put her in her crib. The mechanics of keeping a baby alive, he managed.
What he couldn't manage was everything underneath that. Some nights the bottles got rinsed, some nights they didn't, and he'd reuse one in the morning without really registering it. Her bedtime shifted by hours depending on how late he could keep himself from sitting down and disappearing into the silence. There were days she stayed in the same outfit because changing her into something else meant opening a drawer he and his wife had organized together, and that was a door he didn't have it in him to open. Bills arrived and he paid some of them, late or partially or not at all, because opening the mail meant confronting a life he hadn't agreed to live. He started ordering food delivery most nights, not because he was hungry, but because deciding what to cook required a kind of presence grief had hollowed out of him. He bought things online at 2 a.m, not because he needed them, but because clicking buy was the only decision that didn't feel impossible. None of this was about poverty. He had the money. What he didn't have was the capacity to manage it, or to manage anything else, because grief had taken the part of him that plans, that notices, that shows up. Mia, meanwhile, was too young to understand any of it. She couldn't ask for what she needed. She could only respond to what was in front of her. And what was in front of her, more days than not, was a father who was present in the room and absent everywhere else. Daniel didn't see the gap forming, not because he didn't love her, because he was drowning in a way that made it impossible to see anything clearly, including the slow erosion of the one promise he had made.
And then one afternoon, an envelope arrived that was different from all the others. Daniel almost didn't open it. If he hadn't, everything that happened next would have gone very differently. That's coming up right after this. The letter was from Child Protective Services. Mia's daycare had filed a report. The staff had documented what they were seeing over several weeks. She often arrived without having eaten breakfast. Her diaper bag was frequently missing supplies. She'd shown up in the same clothes 2 days in a row more than once. She cried more than other children her age when dropped off and took longer to settle. None of it on its own was dramatic. Together, it was a pattern, and the daycare was required to report it.
Daniel read that letter standing in his kitchen, surrounded by unopened mail and empty delivery containers. And for the first time in almost 2 years, he actually looked around at the life he was living. He didn't recognize it. He sat down on the kitchen floor, not the table, the floor, and cried in a way he hadn't allowed himself to since the day his wife died. Because in that moment, he understood something with brutal clarity. He hadn't just lost his wife. He had been on the verge of losing his daughter, too.
Not to an accident, not to bad luck, to his own paralysis. The promise echoed back at him. Promise me she comes first. He had not kept that promise. Not because he stopped loving her, because grief had made him a ghost in his own home. The next week, he started therapy. Not because he wanted to, because the alternative was losing the only piece of his wife that was still alive in the world.
In one of his early therapy sessions, his counselor introduced him to something called Kakebo, a Japanese household budgeting method created in 1904, designed not just to track money, but to create mindfulness around it. Kakebo isn't a spreadsheet, it's a practice. At the start of each month, you write down your income and a savings goal. Then you divide spending into 4 simple categories: survival, optional, culture, and extra. But the real power of Kakebo isn't the categories. It's the question it forces you to ask at the end of each month. How do I feel about how I spent this month? Not just what did I spend, how did it feel?
For Daniel, that question was devastating the first time he answered it honestly. Because the answer wasn't about money at all. It was, I spent this month absent. I spent this month surviving instead of living. I spent this month failing the one promise that mattered. Kakebo gave him a structure to slow down, to sit with a notebook once a day, even for 5 minutes, and be present with his choices, financial and otherwise. It wasn't about restricting spending. It was about ending the autopilot that grief had put him on. Every entry in that notebook was a tiny act of returning to his own life. Kakebo gave him the awareness, but awareness without action is just guilt with better vocabulary. That's where Kaizen came in. Kaizen is a Japanese philosophy that means continuous improvement through small, consistent changes. Not transformation through a single dramatic decision. Transformation through tiny steps, repeated daily, until they become who you are. Daniel couldn't fix a 1.5 years of absence in a week. He knew that, so he didn't try to. Week 1, he cooked dinner at home twice instead of ordering delivery every night, and sat at the table with Mia instead of eating standing up. Week 2, he opened every piece of mail the day it arrived, no matter how much he didn't want to. Week 3, he started a simple bedtime routine at the same time every night, because Mia, like most toddlers, calmed down when things became predictable again. Week 4, he canceled 3 subscriptions he didn't remember signing up for, found $140 a month he didn't know he was bleeding, and put it directly into a savings account he named Mia's Promise. None of these changes were dramatic. That was the point. Kaizen doesn't ask for willpower you don't have.
It asks for 1% more consistently, until the small percentages compound into an entirely different life. 6 months in, Daniel's Kakebo notebook looked different. The entries weren't about survival anymore. They were about a man slowly, deliberately rebuilding presence, one small decision at a time. Mia was 2 years old by then. She couldn't tell him what had changed, but she showed him. She started reaching for him the moment he walked through the door, instead of barely looking up from the floor. She settled faster at bedtime. She laughed, really laughed, the kind that comes from feeling safe, more often than she had before. She wasn't old enough to understand what a promise was, or what almost happened. She just knew, in the simple and total way small children know things, that her father was there, really there. And she leaned into that with everything she had.
The Child Protective Services visit happened. Daniel was honest about everything. The grief, the therapy, the changes he had already started making. The caseworker saw a home that was still healing, but no longer neglected. The case was closed. But Daniel says to this day that the letter wasn't the thing that saved him. Mia was. Because somewhere in those small Kaizen changes, the home-cooked dinners, the predictable bedtimes, the nightly 5 minutes with a notebook, he started seeing his daughter again. Really seeing her. The way his wife had asked him to.
And in seeing her, he found his way back to himself. His wife's last words were not really about money or survival. They were about love being put into action every single day in small, consistent ways. Daniel didn't understand that the day she said it. He understands it now. Every time he opens that notebook, every time he chooses presence over avoidance, every time Mia reaches for him at the door. The promise he almost broke became the promise that rebuilt him.
If you're a single parent right now, drowning in something that has nothing to do with money, grief, depression, burnout, anything that's made you feel like a ghost in your own home, I want you to hear this. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You need 1% more. Today. That's all Kaizen asks. If you want to see what that 1% looks like in practice, the habit of paying yourself first, one small, consistent decision at a time, I told that story a few weeks ago. I'll leave it right here. Subscribe if this story meant something to you, and leave a comment below. What's one small change you could make this week? Not a big one, just 1% that might bring you back to yourself. See you next video.